Welcome to today's Explainer. Look, we're diving straight into some absolutely incredible deep dive analysis of the global hardware market, and it all points to one mind-blowing conclusion. Moore's Law is officially dead. And honestly, that might just be the greatest thing to ever happen to tech. Today, we're going to virtually unbox the blueprints for a terrifyingly thrilling 2026 cybernetic gaming rig. Seriously, forget everything you know about PC building, because by the end of this, your current machine is going to look like an absolute antique. Let's get into it.
So here is the ultimate blueprint for the alien architecture we're about to explore. We'll be moving from the processing brain all the way out to the global ecosystem, covering the quantum core, synthetic veins, the AI graphics shift, the end of loading screens, gaming with your mind, and finally, the hybrid era.
All right, let's kick off our virtual teardown deep inside the machine with Section 1, the quantum core.
Take a second and think about the PC on your desk right now. It's likely a noisy, clunky metal box that just generates a ton of heat to crunch numbers, right? Well, by 2024, that traditional architecture completely hit a wall. We reached the 1-nanometer barrier, which led to extreme electron leakage and the absolute catastrophic collapse of Moore's Law. I mean, hardware engineers were literally hitting the physical limits of our universe. But, that wall forced a massive breakthrough. Fast forward to late 2025 and 3D qubit stacking debuts, actually using light to transmit data. That fast-tracked us right to Q2 of 2026, marking the glorious debut of room-temperature stable, consumer quantum processing units hitting the public market.
Now, what makes this quantum power so insanely revolutionary is real-time infinite physics. We're talking about chips like the AMD Ryzen Quantum and the Intel Core Q. They use dedicated clusters of qubits right alongside your conventional silicon cores. So imagine an explosion goes off in an open-world game. This QPU instantly calculates the exact aerodynamics of millions of dust particles, the structural splintering of glass, and exactly how the shockwave ripples through distant trees. Scripted, pre-rendered environmental destruction? Yeah, that is officially a relic of the past.
Moving right along to the rig's circulatory system, Section 2, synthetic veins and biocooling.
Okay, calculating quantum physics generates a staggering amount of localized heat. We're talking frequent spikes well beyond 1,500 watts of thermal design power. Traditional water loops and massive triple-fan heat sinks, they completely failed to cool these beasts. The industry desperately needed an industrial-grade biomimetic solution, and they found it. The result is this pulsing nanosynthetic fluid that has a heat capacity 100 times greater than the old distilled water coolants we used to rely on. It literally absorbs microbursts of quantum heat in nanoseconds.
And the specs for these biocooling systems, they are straight out of a sci-fi movie. You're getting 0 decibel absolute silence because there are literally no mechanical pumps or spinning fans to fail. Instead, the chassis is lined with flexible, smart polymers and optic veins that contract and expand. It actually pulses like a living cardiovascular system, usually glowing in these incredible neon cyberpunk hues. It lowers your core temps by 10 degrees under max load, and the fluid stays pristine for up to 5 years. Honestly, looking inside your PC now feels more like looking at an alien anatomy textbook.
Up next is the graphics engine, Section 3, the AI graphics shift. So for years, the hardware industry was totally obsessed with brute-forcing graphics. They were natively rendering every single pixel on screen at 4K or 8K resolution. But by 2025, everyone kind of woke up and realized that was a fundamentally flawed, wildly power-hungry approach. Enter the Edge Neural Processing Unit, or Edge NPU. Instead of painstakingly drawing every pixel, these processors render the base game at incredibly low resolutions, sometimes just 720p. Then, they deploy hyper-advanced generative AI to basically hallucinate flawless 8K graphics in real time. Deep learning algorithms are now predicting how photons and light should scatter with 99.9% accuracy, and they're doing it using barely 10% of the electrical power of those old ray tracing methods. To put that into perspective, the sheer scale of this generational clash is just astounding. Just contrast the classic monolithic GPUs like the RTX 4090, those colossal 4-slot bricks demanding up to 600 watts of power, against the new hybrid Edge NPU. It's a single-slot embedded chip drawing maybe 150 watts at most. This economic miracle miraculously lowers the barrier to entry for enthusiast-grade 8K gaming, and it drastically shrinks the global carbon footprint of the entire industry. It is a massive win-win.
Which perfectly sets us up for Section 4, the end of loading screens. If you were to travel to 2026 and tell a gamer that we used to sit there staring at static images called loading screens while a little bar slowly filled up, they'd look at you in complete disbelief. I mean, Generation 6 Smart Storage operates on a photonic direct access protocol with a blistering 52 gigabytes per second bandwidth and 0.01 millisecond latency. Thanks to Direct Storage 3.0, the NPU gets direct microsecond-level access to the solid-state drive. So what does this actually mean for you? When you command your character to teleport across a sprawling galaxy, the environmental transition is absolute and instantaneous. Those 8K textures are fetched and generated precisely in the exact microsecond your camera aligns with them. No waiting, just playing.
Now let's pan outward to the user interface with Section 5, Gaming with Your Mind. So we're moving from the internal guts of the machine to how we actually interact with it. And this might be the most futuristic shift of all. The mouse and keyboard? Yeah, they're becoming relics. They're being heavily supplemented by non-invasive brain-computer interfaces, or BCIs, from companies like Neuralink and Logitech, which have fully hit the mainstream peripheral market. Imagine you're in a highly competitive shooter. You don't physically click a plastic mouse to fire anymore. You simply focus your intent. The headset reads the EEG signals directly from your brain's motor cortex, resulting in absolute 0 millisecond latency. Just thinking about pulling the trigger sends the command into the game instantly. It's fundamentally faster than human physical reaction times. No way around it, that is a real game changer.
And this is where the gameplay becomes truly spectacular. In immersive VR titles, players can literally experience digital telekinesis. You can lift heavy objects and hurl them with pure mental concentration. And while you're doing that, the game's AI is continuously monitoring your heart rate, your cognitive fatigue, and your stress levels through the headset. It adaptively scales the game's difficulty on the fly to keep you locked in a perfect, uninterrupted state of psychological flow.
Finally, let's zoom all the way out to the global ecosystem to wrap up with Section 6, the hybrid computing era.
Back in the early 2020s, a lot of analysts boldly predicted that local gaming rigs would just go extinct, replaced entirely by cloud servers. But, well, no matter how fast your fiber optics are, you literally cannot beat the speed of light. And hardcore gamers will never, ever tolerate input lag. So, the elegant solution that actually won out is hybrid computing. Think of it as an incredible tag team architecture. Your local rig and its NPU render the core engine, your reflexes and targeting systems locally, guaranteeing absolute zero latency. Simultaneously, massive cloud servers are calculating the hyper-heavy background processes, like the individual behaviors of tens of thousands of pedestrians in a city, or physically accurate global weather destruction, and seamlessly streaming that data right to your local machine as background context.
And as you'd expect, this technological leap has built an explosive financial trajectory. The 2030 outlook completely proves that hitting the physical limits of silicon was not a death sentence for the hardware market. Actually, scratch that. It was the ultimate catalyst. Quantum processor silicon is projected to hit $350 billion. Biocooling is jumping from a tiny $2 billion research field to an $85 billion industry. And those mind-reading BCI peripherals skyrocketing to a $120 billion market. So as we conclude our virtual teardown, let's just quickly summarize the undeniable victories of this cybernetic renaissance. We are looking at massive power reductions of up to 50%, the mind-bending introduction of infinite real-world quantum physics, the complete and total eradication of loading screens, and dead silent biological cooling systems. But hey, to be fully comprehensive, we have to impartially report on the very real challenges and friction points of this new tech, because early adoption is never perfect. First-generation quantum hardware, it has some exorbitant initial pricing. Those beautiful synthetic veins we talked about, they do require a complete fluid flush every 3 to 5 years. The whole new AI architecture is completely incompatible with legacy pre-2023 game titles, and prolonged use of BCI headsets past the 4-hour mark can lead to noticeable cognitive fatigue. It's almost like the sheer exhaustion you feel right after taking an intense college exam.
Which directly brings us to a really critical question you might be asking right now. Can older PCs run modern 2026 titles? The clear, unvarnished answer is no. Modern titles built on engines like Unreal Engine 6 are natively designed around that NPU upscaling and generative hallucination we discussed. Legacy cards completely lack the required AI architecture to handle it. So even former titans of the GPU world will experience severe, totally unplayable frame drops.
And that leaves us with one final, deeply provocative question for you to ponder today. Are these non-invasive BCI headsets truly the final frontier of gaming, or just the very beginning of the ultimate human-machine merger? I mean, your 2026 PC is no longer just a lifeless metal box. It's a semi-sentient companion directly interfacing with your thoughts to build parallel universes in fractions of a millisecond. It really makes you wonder, what could possibly come next? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep your minds open to the future.